Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's afternoon tea with the Pebble Geo team. We're going to be talking about generating AGS files today, which is a feature of the Plus version of Pebble Geo. So it's not something that everybody needs, but it's a useful thing to run through just for those people out there who do use it. As usual, this episode will remain on Ben's feed on LinkedIn, so you can just watch the video back at your leisure. It should also be on YouTube as well. So again, you'll just be able to watch that after the live stream as a video on YouTube. There's my phone telling me once again that it started. If you've got any questions throughout the session, I'll be keeping an eye on the comments in both LinkedIn and YouTube. So just pop any questions that you've got on any aspects of Pebble Geo, and we'll come back to you. If we can't come back to you during the session, we'll definitely answer the question in the chat later on, so you will get an answer. Ben, do you want to crack on?
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Tracy. Thanks very much for the intro. I see you've got your shining themed cushions in the background today.
Yeah, it's almost autumn, so
yeah,
we're back in shining vibes.
Cool. Right, so let's get on with it. Let's share the screen and show you about the AGS file generation. So as Tracy said, not everyone needs this function, but some people really rely on it. This, I think, will be a relatively, I won't say speedy demo. I'm not going to rush it, but it's a fairly basic operation to be able to generate an AGS file from your Pebble Geo project. You can do it in both desktop and web. I'm about to show both. Okay, so I have pre-prepared a little Pebble Geo project. So if you're familiar with Pebble Geo, you'll know that all the borehole trial pit logging, etc., happens within an Excel environment. So you'll have an Excel template. I've got one of those here, and all I'm going to do is drag and drop it into the Pebble Geo desktop app. That will load it as per usual. And it's a very basic project here because I don't need too much data just to show you the principles. I've got a couple of trial pits in here. And basically, I just go to the top right main menu option, and under there is an option labeled export/converts. This is where you can do all your conversions between various different data formats, including AGS. So the general idea is drag and drop your Excel project into the Pebble Geo app, head for the export convert menu. If I click that, there's a few options, one of which is AGS. You can also go back out to Excel because we have two different versions of the Excel template. Zip, ignore that for the moment. No one's really using that, but the CSV is quite useful as well. That might be the topic of another afternoon tea. But for now, we're going to press the AGS button. So if I click this, it's going to bring up a little input screen now. This is what we call the AGS TRAN group, so TRAN. So this is part of the AGS4 standard/schema, if you will. And it's going to provide the metadata for the transfer of the data from you to whoever you're sending it to, whether that's a client or a main contractor or someone else within your organization. It will pre-populate most of this data for you, so it will put today's date in. Obviously, you can edit that if you want to, but there are two other required fields that it doesn't know what you want to put there. One is TranProd, which is the producer, so you're presumably the producer of the data. I'm going to say that's me, so I'm going to say that's Pebble Geo, so typically that would be your company name. And there's one down here that's blank, required, which is the tran_recv, which is transfer receiver. So this is usually the name of the client. So I'm just going to put my client in there. Continue with export. So once we've got all that populated, you shouldn't have to press or modify anything else. The only thing I will just point out here is that we're by default on AGS version 4.04 for exports. You can switch to 4.1.0 and 4.1.1. Just be aware they aren't complete schemas within Pebble Geo, so your mileage might vary a little bit. By default, go for 404. If your client needs something slightly different, a slightly different variation on the AGS standard, then give the others a try. If you get any problems, just get in touch with us. We can troubleshoot any data issues. Other than that, we'll continue with the export. And I'm just going to pick a folder. I'm going to work back into my afternoon tea folder, and I'm just going to call this AGS1. So give it a file name, click save. Pebble Geo will generate the AGS file almost virtually instantaneously. You can see the file is already here, and I can have the option there to re-import it. If I click yes to re-import it, it will load that same data set back in as an AGS file. Within Pebble Geo app itself, that won't look any different to the Excel because it's the exact same data. It's just come from a different format, AGS rather than Excel. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look for my AGS validator. So you can get the AGS themselves have provided this little app here, which is the AGS validator. I'm running version 2 at the moment. You can get this from the AGS website. It's related to the AGS Data Management Working Group. I'm just going to check that file within this validator. So this is not Pebble Geo now. This is a third-party validator. And you just browse for the file. I'm going to pick this file that I just generated from Pebble Geo. It reads the file information, then it's ready. I click validate, and it gives me a little report. You can see hopefully all checks passed, validate and complete, the file is valid. So whenever we're doing AGS exports from Pebble Geo on the development side, we're always checking with this reference AGS validator from the AGS themselves to make sure those files are valid. Okay, so I'm just going to do something a bit cheeky just to show you what happens if something is wrong with the data. So I'm actually going to open the AGS file up. If you're not familiar with how AGS looks, don't worry about it. Just bear with me for the moment. It's basically a sort of special format CSV file. And I'm going to modify a field, and I'm going to give it loads more decimal places than it should have according to the AGS definition. Okay, so that's actually a base depth on a geology interval I've coded there. So if I come back to my validator and revalidate the file, you can see the file is not valid because the value of 2.000, etc., which I just deliberately broke in the geology base, is not a 2 decimal place value. So this is all where you get into the vagaries of AGS and what it expects. It's quite strict on that. So if in the standard it's defined as 2 decimal places, we've adopted that standard and it will basically work to that standard. So if anything happens in your data that's not quite to the standard, what happens in Pebble Geo? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload that AGS file into the app just to show you. So that now has the slightly duff value of 2.0000, etc. in it, and I'm going to re-export that. So this also shows that you can also, you don't have to import Excel. You can import an AGS file and then export it back out to AGS from Pebble Geo. Quite sure you do that. I'm only showing it here for purposes of demonstration, but you can do it. If I go back out to AGS, it's remembered my producer and receiver for the session. Continue with export now. You can see here there's a new screen, and it's basically showing you that Pebble Geo does a basic validation on the data before it creates the AGS file. So it says here some validation issues were detected, but it reassures you, don't worry, Pebble Geo can usually fix these automatically as part of the export, which it will try and do in most cases. So it gives you this basically high-level summary, incorrect units, n equals 1 sort of thing. So we've got one issue. I can click to view the validation report. This is just a little text report explaining which rule has failed. In this case, we've only got one failure, so we've only got one row of data. Invalid data for field joel base, value 2.000, etc. when the type should be 2 decimal place. So what happens there? Okay, well, I can just cancel the export there. But actually, if I continue with the export, Pebble Geo will say, right, I'm going to try and fix most of that. It can't fix absolutely everything. So if the data is in a real mess, you know, it can't, it's not magic. But if I export back out to AGS2, give it a different file name, and then if I come back to my AGS validator, browse for that new file. So this is the file where I've said, yes, try and auto fix everything. And if I then validate that, the file is valid. So that's just to show you that if you have these little issues with incorrect number of decimal places, etc., etc., Pebble Geo will smooth most of that out for you. So most of the time, 95% of the time, your export, even if you've got some slightly dodgy values in your data, not that you should have if you're coming from the Pebble Geo Excel, because it has all the formats embedded within it. But if you have any issues, re-exporting back out to AGS will usually smooth off those edges and create a valid file. I'm now going to switch to the web version of Pebble Geo and show you how to do the same thing in web. So I'm already logged in here just to save a bit of time, but basically head to the website and log in. And I've got my AGS files here. I'll get rid of those so I don't get confused. So this is my Pebble Geo Excel project. Drag and drop onto the web map, and that will upload the file into the web. That takes a moment because it has to upload the Excel, check it, process it, validate it, and then it will present it onto the map if there are coordinates, which I believe there are. So if I just wait a second, that should load up. He says, yeah, there we go. So we've got 2 trial pits here. We're in Kings Lynn in Norfolk, naturally, which is where the team are based. So with those locations loaded in there, again, as with the desktop, everything's under this top right main menu here, so the main menu button with the 3 lines. And there's a download data option. So we've got a slightly different label there in the web to the desktop. It doesn't say export convert, it says download, but it has the same function. When I go into here, I've got various options. So these are equivalent to those little options you've got in the desktop app. So we can go to CSV, we can go back out to Excel, but here, obviously, today we're going to AGS. So it says download as AGS. Again, I've got those same options for the AGS exact version. I'm going to stick on 404. Producer is me, so I'm going to call that Pebble Geo again. So this is just the TRAN information. Receiver is my client. Status, I'm going to say that's final. And then I can specify the file name here if I like. Then I'll just click generate. That will do the exact same piece of work, and it will create an AGS file. So that's just 2 different routes of doing it. So that is essentially it for afternoon tea today. As I said, not everybody needs the AGS export, but what we've tried to do in Pebble Geo is to make it as painless as we possibly can. So I don't know if we have any questions coming up, Tracy.
I'm hoping you can see me now. I disappeared from the screen just now, so I don't quite know what happened.
You did disappear.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can, yeah. You disappeared last week for some reason. I'm starting to get paranoid.
And now there's 2 of me. Yeah, I disappeared at about the same time as well. So hopefully it's coming through okay. I'm not seeing, we look quite normal now, ish. I'm not seeing any questions on YouTube at all. So I'll just close that now. And then with LinkedIn, let's have a look. No current questions on LinkedIn either. So either you've explained everything really well, or people are going to come back to us later on. So, yeah.
Oh, I thought everyone would be desperate to ask questions about AGS file generation.
Did you? Is this the one you really thought we were going to be like inundated?
My entire career, it's been on my mind every single day, to be honest. But, you know.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Thanks for joining. Thanks for rewatching back if you're not watching live. As Tracy said, any other questions that occur to you at any point, just get in touch. hello@pebblegeo.com. So thanks very much.
Yeah, see you next time.
Cheers.